Good morning and welcome to Sunday School Lessons, online Sunday School lessons for the Unchurched, Nonchurched, and Church Hurt for Sunday. I haven't a clue as to what today is. June, June 2025. This is lesson 26, and I put the description in the lesson focus in the description for today. And today we're going to be looking at we're still in Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 24. As soon as I do that, I have to yawn. I want to say this. I'm your host, Lori Stimson Artega, and I want to start off by saying thank you to those of you who have been I almost said riding with us, who have been riding, watching, viewing, and supporting the online study since it started. And what I mean by what I mean by support is, support isn't always about financial donations and contributions. While they are always greatly appreciated, thank you for for the messages that say, hey, that was a great lesson, or for questions and all those. We really appreciate that. Now, as you can tell, I am dressed for vacation. So as soon as this broadcast is over, we're about to be in the streets, okay? So I just went ahead and dressed for vacation. All righty. Again, Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 24. And today we're going to take a look at choices. Did you know that you don't just like what you like? There's always there's always a reason as to why you like it. There is science as to why we like some of the things that we like. And what I hope we discover today is that some of the things that we are gravitating towards in our life choices, and some of the things that we are taking into our life, are based on not really what we want, but sometimes they're based on how we want others to perceive us, to not only perceive, but also receive us. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm using my cell phone to record today, but I'm sitting at our dining room table, and in order for me to use the cell phone as opposed to the laptop, I had to stack several books. So two thick books, and then two really thick books, and then there are two, like that. But I'm going somewhere with this. So I looked at the base book is the old school. It says the Good Housekeeping Cookbook. Back when I was a kid, everybody and their grandma, if you wanted to be a good cook, you had this. So I have that book as my base. And then the next book that is super thick is a book I had from college, The Complete Works of William Shakespeare. And then the next one is a book by Barclay that says The Mind of Christ. And then I have my mom's Bible. So the Bible is at the top. So the phone is actually resting on the cookbook, William Shakespeare, standing on that, but then it's resting on the Bible and Barclay. Now, here's the reason I use that. Right before the broadcast, I pressed live. I looked at the William Shakespeare, and there were two lines that are very popular, which I think are significant to what we're going to talk about today. And the first line that came to my mind was, "To thine own self be true." And as soon as I put the book down and I was typing the description, put the phone up, it was like, "To thine own self be true." He wrote that in one of his plays, and that is in everyday terminology, in everyday language. That's really what we're going to talk about in the choices. He also I forgot the other one, so that means it wasn't as important. So that's what we're going to talk about today, choices. And I hope and I pray by the end of this broadcast that you will understand that the choices, that the things that you are choosing and taking into your life and what you are giving out, what you're choosing to put out into the world, a lot of times it is a spiritual indication of where your priorities are. So if I step on your toes today, just kind of, think about it and we'll keep moving. All right. As always, I read the KJV version of the scriptures, but whatever translation you feel like you need to be better and use and can understand, by all means, do that. Use that. Verse number 19 of Matthew chapter 6 reads, "Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal." Verse 20, "But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal." Now, before we start explaining and expounding on those two verses, here's what I want to say. Do you remember when we started in Matthew chapter 6? We have discussed, Jesus has taught us about giving of alms or charitable donations, charitable gifts to support, the ministries, etc. In this chapter, he has taught us about praying. He has modeled prayer. He has talked about fasting. So when you look at those three things, the precursor to what we are going to talk about today, what you will discover is that at the very end of this chapter, thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Look at this, breakfast at the table. Okay, thank you. Would you like to come and say good morning? Oh, do what you love. Look at the ones.
Good morning.
We're both walking around here in reading glasses. Look at my breakfast. Yeah, thank you so much. Will you do me a favor? Can you go to Matthew chapter 6 and remind me how many verses are in there? Because I think we're at the tail end. But what Jesus has done is he's now getting to the motive, the core. Okay, the core, the nitty gritty of what of who we are. He's getting to the core, the essence of who we are. And again, so when you look at chapter 6, 34, thank you. So when you look at chapter 6, it is a chapter that is unique to Christian behavior, ruled and governed by thought, by our actions. It is a total and complete chapter on that. So when you look at verse number 19 and verse number 20, the first thing that he tells you is it gives you, within these two verses, it gives you so much. It basically topples all of our thoughts as to what and how society says that we should think, act, and govern ourselves, okay? So here are the questions that I want to ask you, and I have wrote them down here. Where are your thoughts? What do you think about? Are your thoughts on earth or are your thoughts on heaven? Is your mind consistently on earthly things or things of God? What are you seeking? What are we seeking? Are we seeking the things on earth or are we seeking the things of heaven or the things of God? Where is our heart? Is our heart focused on things here, or is our heart focused on things of a heavenly or spiritual nature? because these verses is what he's going to talk about. So the first thing he says, that lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth. Okay. And then, and he says where the moth and the rust can corrupt. He was saying, first of all, there are two kinds of riches. In verse 19 and 20, that's all that's saying. There are two kinds of riches. You have earthly riches and you have heavenly or spiritual riches. So in this case, I don't want you to focus, and I know it's going to sound contradictory, but just let me articulate it first before you make a decision or before you reject it. For these particular verses, I want you to think less about heaven as a physical place and more about how you are placing things of a value, how you are assigning a value on your spiritual well-being. Again, I'm not taking away from the verses by saying, lay them up in heaven's storehouse. I'm not taking away from that. I'm simply saying that in this passage, as Jesus was talking to them, he wanted them to focus on things of a spiritual nature. So that's what I'm saying. Let's look at it from two perspectives. How much are you placing a value on the things you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear, earthly treasure, physical treasure, and how much emphasis are you placing on the things that the invisible things that you cannot see? Love, joy, peace, happiness, all of those, those things that you cannot see, things that are of a spiritual nature. So he says to us early on, Jesus admits, okay, yes, there are riches. There are two types of riches. And I think sometimes we don't think about it that way. Sometimes we forget that there are riches that you cannot go deposit in the bank, that you cannot buy gold, purchase with gold, or get a CD for, that you cannot drive around, that you cannot close yourself in behind. He's saying that there are earthly riches and then there are heavenly or spiritual riches. And the first thing that he says in verse 19, he's like, don't store up. He says, lay not up. That means don't store up things that are corruptible. Don't let your focus don't let your choice be so driven by the accumulation of things that are going to rot, that are going to rust, that are going to decay, that are going to lose value. He's saying, don't store those things. Now, I do want to say, is there anything wrong with driving and wanting or aspiring to live in a nice home, to drive a nice car? No, there's nothing wrong with that. And you know what? Life is about progressing. So you don't always want to, before you expire, your breath leaves your body. You want to know and to have experienced what it's like to have driven at some point a brand new car. You want to experience that feeling. You want to know what it's like to go on vacation, travel the world, or go, if you want to go to Dallas or Shreveport or Houston, or whatever, you want to know what it's like to go on vacation and not have to worry about robbing Peter to pay Paul when you get back. You want to know what it's like to go to a furniture store and have your home decorated. Those are wonderful things. That's life, natural life growth and progression. God is in that. He's in for you to progress naturally, but not at the expense of your spiritual well-being. So he starts out by saying, do not put all of your focus and your attention on laying up or storing up things that will not stand the test of time. He's saying, because everything in the earth is corruptible. Everything dies. Everything rusts. Everything is corruptible in this earth. It gets old. Everything in this world, in this earth, suffers the ravages of time. So that's what he's saying. He's saying if it's not going to suffer the ravages of time, then somebody can come around and steal it. But here's the flip side to that. Whatever they steal, whatever they take, if they keep it or pass it on or chop it up, it's still corruptible. So that's what he's saying. And he starts out very early. Stop. Don't stop trying to hoard all of this money. Stop trying to, I got $10 million in the bank. That's why he said it's harder for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heaven than for a camel to go through the eye of a needle, or something, that one of those quotes. I know I'm messing it up, but because at some point you can't stop. You can't stop because that level of contentment is tossed to the wind. There's no more peace. So that's what he was saying. Stop laying up and storing things. You're putting all of your focus on things that are corruptible. Do I encourage you to have an emergency fund? Yes. Do I encourage you to have money on reserve? Yes. But not at the expense of your spiritual well-being. Not at the expense of your family relationships. Not at the expense of that's your entire focus. Just saving money. Just getting what you can get. You know, one of the things that totally and completely and utterly irritates me is seeing people in food giveaway lines and in back to school lines for school supplies and handouts that they themselves have access to. I really do. There are not many things I hate in this life, but that's one that I absolutely abhor. I hate to see people driving through food lines who have food at home, who have money and access to food. I hate that. You know why? Because that's greed. That is greed. And you are taking away from the blessing that could be for somebody who needed it, simply because you had access to transportation and time. And you want to save your money. For what reason are you saving? Well, if it's out there, I'm going to get it. If it's going to save me $1. Well, maybe God bless you with your life, your health, and your strength, and your job, so that you could not be on the receiving end of a blessing, but you could be on the giving end of a blessing. Maybe you are limiting yourself by the company that you keep. Meaning, if everybody in the line is destitute and they need the money, they need the supplies, well, you have aligned yourself with poverty. So at some point, the choice to stand in that line, is it really worth your future detriment by who you align yourself with? Now, that's just how I think. And I think the scriptures, as a man thinks, so is he. So if you're in the line for a handout, if I'm loading the bag in the back of your car, I'm assuming you need it. It's detrimental to your survival. So if I'm loading it and everybody in the line proves that they need it, then, and I don't mean prove it to other people, but if it's proven wherever they're going that they need it, that is their primary source, then you have aligned yourself with destitute people. So at some point, you are going to reap the consequences of your choices. That's all Jesus was saying. Keep storing up stuff. Keep letting stuff be your focus. Keep letting earthly things be your focus, okay? Keep letting that be what you are driven by. And he's saying, at the end of your days, you're going to realize you wasted a lot of time, energy, and attention. But look at the flip side to that. Look at what he said in verse 20. He was saying that, but when you lay up your treasure in heaven, okay, when you lay up your treasure in heaven, all right, that you are placing it in something that's not corruptible. You're placing it in something that man can never take from you. You are placing it in something that is only going to accrue you more interest. You know, that's what he's saying. He's saying that when you put when your choice is always for the natural things, then what ends up happening is you cease from allowing those things to provide you with a life of comfort, okay, and contentment. When you start storing up earthly treasures after so much, you start walking in it. You leave yourself open and susceptible to a different mentality. You know, I know people, unfortunately, and they're good people. They cannot see where they are, the error of their ways. But I know people, their main purpose in acquiring things is for the high validation that they are going to receive from other people. Some people attend events or put on events so that other people, they can be the measuring rod or the measuring stick, the yardstick for other people. It has nothing to do with them just being content. They're seeking not just the validation, but it speaks to pride. It speaks to arrogance. So that is really what these verses are about. They're getting you to think about your choices, the importance of how you are choosing, how your choices, how sometimes you don't always realize and think about your choices. You know, I gave this example of buying a new car, you know, and again, go back and look at that video where I reviewed my car. Now, I drive a Chevy, okay? I just purchased a 2025 Chevy. That was not my car of top choice. I had never thought about driving a Chevy. Not that there's anything wrong with them, but because the dynamics of our life had changed, I was going to go back to driving, you know, Volvos, because that's what I like. But what I have discovered and learned just in the driving of this brand, okay, of car, that again, a lot of the things that we would have paid for, I would have paid for as extras, came standard. Now, I use that example, the car example, because there are people who purchase their cars or their vehicles not to meet the need of their family, but they purchase them so that other people can look at them. Now, it doesn't matter that you've gone out and you've bought this teensy weensy designer level car and you've got littles that are constantly slamming the doors in and out, in and out. It doesn't matter. You didn't think that through. You just wanted, when you rolled in the hood being your neighborhood, when you rolled in your neighborhood or you're rolling down the street, you wanted every eye. Oh, look at that right there. Woo, woo, as I always say, wee doggy. Whereas Your kids getting, don't step, y'all don't get in this car with all that food. Don't get in this car with all of that dirt. Well, your kids are in soccer, they're in taekwondo and karate, they're in dance, and having been a dance, karate, still a soccer mom, when they get in the car, they're gonna have every event that they participate in, band, every art, every event has its own bag. Okay, has every project and event has its own bag. So, but you done went out here because your choice was driven by impressing people that live outside of the walls and not trying to impress the people that live inside the walls. That blessing that God wanted to give you, you chose poorly. You chose poorly. And that's what we're saying. As Jesus says to you, think about your choices. Stop focusing on things, choosing things that are not adding value, real and true value to your life. Stop choosing those things. Stop consistently choosing the wrong things, the things that are of no importance to anybody around you other than for a brief moment or a brief second. He's saying stop that. He's saying, but choose to lay up, choose to store the things that nobody can steal from you, that nobody can take from you, that nobody can corrupt from you. He's saying, choose those things. Choose those things. Now, here's what I want to say about those first two verses that I really want you to pay close attention to. Because really, in those two verses 19 and 20, there are four different lessons I discovered in reading that. 4 different lessons from within there. The first one, wealth is highly sought after by so many people. Okay? But here's what I want you to think about. Every riches, every level of wealth in this earth is always held by somebody else. It's never yours single-handedly. If you build, I'm building a brand, building a business. Okay, businesses, we can have an amazing product, but we are held hostage if nobody buys it. If you don't buy it, it's a hobby. So our advancement depends on somebody else purchasing. If you own a business, that's any business in the United States, whether it's a small business or a conglomerate of companies, it is always held. Wealth is always held by somebody else. We're always at the mercy of somebody else. Again, whether it's a small business or a conglomerate of multi-million-dollar companies. If you stop buying, so even though you may not be at this level of financial wealth, you hold the power, the spending, the buying power. And if you withhold that, at some point, if enough people withhold it, at some point, everybody's equal. So you're chasing something that you may never fully outright, you're chasing something you'll never fully outright have. Well, let me say this. You can have wealth, but you will never own it. You'll never own it. People who, people who win the lottery, win millions, and guess what? They've still got to pay taxes on it. They don't really own that money until after they pay taxes. And then when they go out and they buy these multi-million-dollar homes, they buy this fleet of boats, they buy all these toys, these houses and all those things, cars. Well, when you go buy that stuff, you got to pay taxes on it. If you buy a house, you got to pay taxes and insurance and utilities. So that's something to think about that people are always trying to figure out how to get something of what somebody else has. Because why? Things of the world are insecure. If people stop supporting my business, it'll be a hobby. It won't be a business. Because I'm at the mercy of my customer. I've got to I make and create the things I love. While I do that, I'm at the mercy after sewing so many totes. If people stop buying the totes, then what am I doing? It's a hobby. Okay, and I'll need to change from being a business to a hobby. The next thing, the other lesson that he wants you to understand, that your life is but a vapor. The scripture says that. Life is but a vapor. Solomon wrote it. It's here today, gone tomorrow. So everything that you are focusing your attentions on now, naturally, go find yourself in the hospital. Find yourself at one of the funeral homes, on that slab, on the table. And everything that you struggled and fought and connived for, it's going to either be restored back to the company because you didn't get paid for it, or it's going to go to people that really didn't have a vested interest in, that never paid, not, as the old people say, one, not ounce, dime, or penny of towards its purchase. So he's also saying, in the other lesson that I gained from this, is you can lose what you have in this world, and you can lose it quickly. And we talked about this. Some people are job rich. If the job plays out, there goes their livelihood. I think that's all of the United States. If the job goes out, let's see how a lot of that stuff will be sold for pennies on the dollar just to survive. So that's what he's saying. And he's saying, the fourth lesson, I think, just in these two verses, is that a person can make a foolish choice by just seeking the abundance of things, that you just going after more and more and more. How many how many pairs of shoes do you need? How many designer handbags do you really need? How many clothes do you really need stuffed in closets? I know a person, every week they're buying something. Every time they get paid, I got to get me some clothes. For what? Where are the clothes that you have? Who are you trying to impress? People will say to me, when I've worked on jobs where they say, I bet your closet is humongous. No. I've never seen you wear the same thing twice. Well, I do. I just rotate it out. My wardrobe, my closet is color coded. And at this point in my life, I don't care how many blue jean or denim shirts I have. If I have 4 denim shirts, I'm not buying another one. No. If I buy another one, it's because the other one has either gotten too small, it has faded, there's some damage to it. No, I buy what I like I try to buy what I like the first time. I'm not out here. I no longer spend tons of money on clothes. This is about 7 or 8 years old. I wash it on cold. I air dry my clothes so they can last and retain their color. I'm not out here. I don't care if you saw me in this every week or 2 weeks ago. Thou carest not. I don't care if every time you see me out and about, I have this on. Unbothered. My body is covered. There's nothing you can see. You can't see the things are of importance. Those are reserved. Okay? Those are kept in private. So that's what he's saying. Those are lessons about choices. Stop seeking after things and stop always choosing the things that you choose to receive validation. Stop doing that. Stop laying up all of your treasures in things that are going to get old. I'm not telling you not to seek to surround yourself with things that you like and things of quality, things of value. No, I'm saying Jesus is telling us don't allow those things to become all consuming, where every purse you own, it has to have somebody else's name on it. Every pair of shoes you wear has to have somebody else's logo on it. Every car you drive has to be a head turner. You know, every home you aspire to live in, you've got to go through secure, you know. You can't just, well, I like what I like. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But Jesus wants us to ask ourselves the question, why do we like it? Why do we like it? Do we like it because it provides us with comfort? Or do we like it and it meets our needs? Or do we like it because we like how we are perceived and received by other people? You know, that's one thing I can say about my husband, bless his heart. My husband's family, what a lot of people didn't know, they were raised very poor. And I don't think he will mind me saying that. His parents did the best that they could do. Okay, now his grandparents, they were immigrants, undocumented immigrants who came here, okay, and got they back then, Now, but as a result of that, my husband and his siblings, they live very frugally. Even if they can afford to do certain things, they don't, because they live frugally. And I applaud that. My husband has never been the kind of person that's running out. The first polo shirt my husband owned was the one I bought him when we were dating, and it was to the point where we were like, we about to get married. First polo shirt, first pair of polo pants. I once went with my naive self, and I'm telling you, whatever I'm teaching you, I had to learn it the hard way. When my husband and I first got married, I wanted for his birthday, I went out and I went to this local high dollar retailer here in the mall, and I bought my husband an entire polo Ralph Lauren wardrobe. He had polo shirts, he had polo socks, polo underwear, polo pants. I had even bought him a polo jacket. And in my mind, oh my goodness, he's going to look amazing. You know, I bought that stuff home, brought it home, and had it all packaged and stuff, and he was just smiling, and oh my goodness, you got this for me? Oh, look at that. That next day, we were getting ready to go eat somewhere, and I said, why don't you wear your new stuff? He said, no. He said, I took all that back. My husband then presented me with another brown bag. He had taken all that stuff back, had gone to Goodwill, and found him 3 pairs of the same polo pants. I had bought him 2 pairs. He found 4 pairs of the same pants. He found like a polo. Actually, he didn't even buy another polo shirt. He's like, Lord, let me tell you something about me. That stuff isn't important to me. He's like, what's important is that you have gas money. That when you go to get something to eat, that you have food in the pantry. What's important to me is that our son has, he has a place to lay his head. That's what's important to me. The clothes, but don't waste your money for me on clothes. So that's my point. He could have been that kind of man that's, and we sitting up here hungry. We sitting up here, lights getting turned off, water getting turned off, because he's so he wants other people to be impressed with his external. That's what Jesus is saying. Think about your choices. Think about how you're placing a high value on how other people perceive you. Don't you care about how God receives you? God knows you. He made you. He understands where you're short. He understands your shortcomings. And that's what he wants you to do. He wants you to become aware of how your choices are pushing you farther and farther away from him. How your life choices and the things that you are taking into your life are getting you farther and farther away from the plan, walking in the plan that he has for your life. You're in somebody else's lane. You veered out of your lane, trying to impress people again that probably could really care less. But notice what he says again in verse 20. He says, but you know, put your store up, lay up the things that are important. Okay? He's saying seek the things that are really of importance. Things that cannot be corrupted. Okay? And that's something that I want us to understand when we look at verse number 21. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. He was saying that, you know, there's a seed of corruption within the world. Like we said earlier, everything is corruptible. So he was saying that seed of corruption. Stop placing your value in things that are not going to last. And then he says, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. He warns you about two kinds of hearts. Okay? He warns you. He says there's a good heart. Just like there's a good eye, there's a good heart. And if I use the example of the eye, because the eye is always what starts our choices. We see it, we like it, we want it. We get it. The validation, the praises of man, that gets into your mind. So a good heart is like a good eye. It gives entrance to the mind. Okay? Whatever you look at is what you think about. And whatever you think about is what you actually become. Like, remember, as a man thinks, Proverbs. Okay? If a person focuses on Christ, who is the light of the world, then his mind and his heart is going to be full of light. So his treasure, he's going to see things, his treasure is going to be different than what people are expecting it to do. Okay? So wherever a man's heart is, okay, wherever a man's treasure is, that's where his heart is, and vice versa. Wherever his heart is, that's where his treasure is. If his treasure is on earth, then his heart is on earth. If his treasure is in heaven, then his heart, his heaven is in fact his treasure. Because this is what I want us to think about. The eye, it illustrates the truth. You know, in using the example of cars, you know, people will go out here and they'll go to a tote, you know, if you need a car, they go to a tote the note place, and there will be a minivan, there may be a minivan, there may be a small SUV, there may be just a sedan type car. And then if there's a BMW, a Mercedes, or a high dollar car, even though they know what their money is, they know what their need is, a lot of times they'll go immediately to the high dollar cars, overlooking what the need for the want. And that's what Jesus was saying. Your eye is going to illustrate and tell every time the truth of it, the truth of the situation. So if a man's eye, if your eye, your spiritual eyes, if they're good, if they're healthy, then you're able to focus on, you know, you're able to make a true choice that illustrates where your treasure is. Again, it has nothing to do with you not going out here and being able to afford and purchase a high dollar car. That's not what I'm saying. You buy whatever you want to buy. But I'm saying the treasure part of, if you have the money to buy a designer car or live in a gated community, there's nothing wrong with that. But Jesus is saying, before you go out and purchase it, why? Why are you purchasing it? Hey, Allison, why are you purchasing it? Why do you want it? If your first thing is, boy, when they see this, when they see me coming in this right here, they ain't gonna know what happened. Motive wrong. Motive is wrong. Motive is impure. You buying it for the wrong reason. But if you go out and you say, okay, these are my choices. This meets the needs of my family. This meets my travel need. This helps me stay within budget. But you know what? But for the same price, I can get this, and it still meets the needs. But by all means. But do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what he's saying? That your indication, your eye sees it, but your heart reveals the truth, your true motive in wanting it. So he's saying that he wants you to focus and understand about if your heart isn't right, that means your motive isn't right. So whatever you choose, it's not going to be the absolute best choice for you, and you're not going to have the outcome. You're going to be driving that stuff, wearing those clothes, and still have no peace, no joy, no love. So he's saying in verse 21, for where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. So he's saying in our choices, make sure that we understand and we know why we are choosing what we're choosing. Make sure that in our choices, that those choices aren't driven by the reception, the accolades, the validation of other people. But let our choices be driven by, okay, Lord, if this is what you would have for me, I receive it. That's what he's saying. Verse number 22, he talks about the light of this, as the light of the body is the eye, is the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? He was saying in verses 22 and 23, a good heart, like we said earlier, is like a good eye. A good eye. What does a good eye do? A good eye focuses and it sees and it focuses not, although it sees everything, it focuses on what it needs. It focuses on and sets its attention on what it needs to see. I'm sitting in my dining room. There are a lot of different things around me. What you can't see, I'm sitting at my dining table on the other side, right in this direction. There is a glass bowl inside an large African woven basket. Okay, it's a cylinder glass bowl, about a vase about this big, this tall, about that wide, but the basket is really large around it. And under that is like a silver serving tray with wood handles. Now, inside of that, I've got stalks of grassland grass. I've got stalks of cotton. I've got stalks of wheat because I like it. All right. Our home is eclectic. Now, if I were to just sit here and focus on that, you're just going to see this. I'm just talking to that. I have a yucca plant, a yucca plant. Okay. There are things that are taking place around me that you can't see. So look at what's happening. But where is my focus? My focus is straight ahead. So that's what, using that example, you notice I gave you in-depth descriptions of the things that were around me. Now I'm sure those things have piqued your curiosity. I'm sure you're probably saying, that doesn't sound, what in the world? Those are distractions. You see what I did? I put in a distraction. And that's what Jesus is saying. I told you about two different things, living and non-living. Now, if you're not careful, those descriptions can distract you because you're trying to imagine, what does that look like? An African basket and a band? Oh, that sounds like a hot mess. That's what he's saying. Your focus. You see how easily you can get distracted? He's saying, but a good heart is like a good eye. It focuses and it sees. It knows when you're going shopping. And it knows when you're buying because you need it and it's going to meet your need, as opposed to you're buying it for the praise and the accolades of other people. You know, while social media is an amazing thing, unfortunately, social media is not good in the lives of some people, because what we've discovered about them is that their self-esteem is so low that they need constant validation by posting every single thing. Everything. We don't need a documentary of your life. At your funeral, nobody's going to pull up your Facebook. They're going to stand down there and say things about you. That's the documentary of your life will be presented at your funeral. Upon death, at your funeral services, the people down there talking and the pictures in the program and maybe a video, that's going to be your documentary. So some of this stuff that people are putting on Facebook is totally inappropriate. It's unnecessary. But you know what it reveals? It reveals their heart. It's revealing their flaws. So that's what Jesus was saying. A good heart is like a good eye. It focuses and it sees. A bad heart is like a bad eye. It's blind and it's dark. It can't see. Okay? It can't see. And he's saying, if a good eye, if the heart is like a good eye, then it's going to see what it needs. It's going to be aware and see what it doesn't need. It's going to see and understand and be able to articulate why it wants it, why it needs it. It's going to be able to see and articulate why it doesn't need it, why it shouldn't want it. But a bad heart, again, it's like a blind eye. You won't be able to see it. And because you can't see it, there's only going to be darkness. You're just going to be walking around here, 2020, but blind spiritually. Because we don't understand about the importance and the significance of our choices. And then look at what he ends with in verse 24. No man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Jesus was saying at some point, you're going to reach the fork in the road where you're going to have to make a choice. Okay? You can't choose two things. You cannot choose peace and chaos. Okay? You cannot choose love and hate. You cannot choose anger and love. You can't choose. You're going to be faithful to one thing. He's saying you can't have your cake and eat it too. Okay? He says you're either going to hate one and love the other. You're either going to hang on to one and let go of the other. He's saying that when he says you cannot serve, you can't serve two masters, it means at some point, this is going to sound really out there, but some people don't realize how their job and their job connections are drawing a wedge or putting a wedge between them and their family. You're either going to love that job, give 100% to that job. If you give 100% to the job, that means your family is getting crumbs. They're getting what's left over. You know, there should be a balance. Your family should always come first. You know, I've said this to my children and to my husband on occasion when they make messes at the house and they just walk off. Like if our youngest, if he stays up till, young person watching TV, if he's in the family room and he's eating a snack and gotten a blanket out of from its proper place, then when I wake up in the morning, and I see pizza crust left on the pizza box, drink containers left, blankets everywhere, doors to the storage thing left open in the house, pillows everywhere. You know what? I feel some type of way about that, because you chose to stay up late. You chose to eat. You chose the place that you decided to sit at. You chose to leave that stuff. But you know what? I say to my children and my husband sometimes, pretend you're at somebody else's house and you got ready to go to sleep. If you were at somebody else's house, you would take your time, fold those blankets, put them close. You'd leave it the way that you wanted it to be left, because you wouldn't want them saying or thinking poorly of you. In that case, if you did that to my children, I said, if you did that and you were at somebody else's house, then you have chosen how that person perceives you and receives you over the wishes of your mother, who is helping to provide this for you. So that's using that simple example. If we're not careful, we will choose jobs and the recognition. We'd rather for everybody else to say wonderful, amazing, and again, wonderful things about us. And we'd rather have an excellent reputation with people on the outside of our homes than with the people on the inside. We'd rather for other people know how reliable and problem solvers, troubleshooters we are, how anytime I call, they are on the spot. As opposed to when somebody in here, our spouses, our children, in our homes, when they need us, we can't never come up with the solution. All we can do is magnify the problem. We can't ever do it at 100%. We can never do it. When they ask us, can you do this? Hey, I need you to do this. Okay, but it never gets done. But somebody on the outside call, and you know what? That's a blind eye. That's where your treasure is. Your treasure is in, you're choosing that person over your family. You're choosing your job over your family. You're choosing your cars, your houses over your family. You're choosing to put all of your hard-earned money into labels, into, designer. Why? Because you're choosing for other people to give you the validation. You're choosing them. You're choosing how they think, how they feel about you, not how God thinks and how God feels about you. You're choosing to put all your kids back to school at Nike down, Adidas down, Polo down. You're choosing. Why? Because you want other people. You want other people to think more highly of your child. So you're held hostage to their opinion. My kids went to school in Walmart back then, Target, JCPenney. My kids didn't know what design. They never wore designer unless it was an extra 50 off. I never started that with my kids. My kids could care less. They'll buy a Walmart top in a minute. They'll go to Old Navy. They'll go to, no. Now, our daughter, she loves Coach. She's young. She don't know no better. She loves Coach. So, but is she out here buying $400, $500, $600? No. Are we out here buying that for? No. No, we didn't start that. So that's what this lesson is about. Understanding that your choices. In the last part of that says, you cannot serve God and mammon. We know that mammon is money. Okay, you can't serve God and money. But here's another thing that sometimes we don't think about mammon. Sometimes we don't think about mammon as being the opinions of other people. That's what he's saying. You can't serve God and man. You can't chase money and material things and expect to grow and go in God. You can't do that. You can't choose, you can't choose to be well received and perceived every single time in man's eyes, and then over here just totally unacceptable to God. That's your life choice. You've got to ask yourself, why do I drive what I drive? Why do I wear what I wear? Why do I live where I live? Why do I hang around who I hang around? Why am I constant? Every time somebody pulls out a camera, there I am. Every time somebody goes on an elaborate vacation, here I am, robbing Peter to pay Paul, trying to keep up with them. You don't know what they got going on. You don't know. Why? Am I for elaborate vacations and all that? Yes, by all means. We're only going to breathe there one time. But I'm not for them, as the Bible has proven and told us. I'm not for them at the expense of tearing up families. I'm not for them, and you should not be either. So understand, there is a spiritual science behind the wanting what you want. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted. Don't get distracted. Keep the main thing the main thing. But if you're able to afford those things, and if that's a brand, there are certain brands that I like. But at the same time, am I going to go bankrupt trying to? No, I'm not. It's not that important. So your life is about choices. So the challenge for this week is for you to take a look at the choices that become, first of all, become more mindful and aware of the choices that you're making. And before you go out and start buying all this stuff, ask yourself, okay, do I really need this? And if I really need it, why am I buying this as opposed to that? Why am I doing that? Why in your friendships, in your connections, why am I hanging around with this people? I know people that will chase down, when it comes to events and stuff, they will chase down the most popular people, the most celebrated people. They'll get a pic with them. Oh yeah. Oh, girl, I saw you. You know her. Mm-hmm. Don't bit my nose. As my mother would say, country people, don't bit my nose. That person from Adam, that person doesn't know you. You just in there in a picture. That's kind of like whenever, we go to LA and we would see celebrities and somebody say, one of the kids, oh, Mom, go get a picture. I see him. The memory is fine. Sometimes I will if I really like the person. Okay. Now if Denzel Washington or Condoleezza Rice, people I really like, if I saw them, I probably would break my rule and say, can I please have a picture? Can I please take a picture with you? Okay. And I would save that. I would print that picture out and I would save it. Okay. Especially Condoleezza Rice. I like her. I would take a picture. I would save that picture. But to be all out here, nah, I'm bothered. It's not that important to me. Just so people can say, ooh, you was out there. Go sit down. So we pray that something was said to strengthen and encourage your walk with Christ. We ask that this week, the challenge is think about your choices. Think about those choices, because those choices are revelation, what's in the heart and what's on the mind. All right. And don't get distracted. As we always say, if you have Christ, you're already a winner. If you have the Spirit of the living God, you can face any challenge life throws your way. You can live a victorious life. Be sure to like and share if it's not too much trouble. God bless you.